Right then, boys and girls, today's video I recorded a fun little intro explaining what I was going to be doing, and then it was awful, so we've got some nice little B-roll instead. Basically today I'm teaching Ryan how to do fur textures, and I figured, hey, maybe you guys would like to see fur textures too. So I'm going to be doing the right side of the raccoon, Ryan's going to be the left side. We are going to use a really boring colour palette with the True Black Platinum, Silver, and then we're going to move into the Blue Silver, Titanium Silver, which is next. There it is. And then just for a fun little bit of quirk, the lettering in the middle, we're going to use light magenta and we're going to use fuchsia. These are just to give the tattoo still a Ryan-y feeling. And obviously we're going to end with the Snow White opaque. This whole thing is going to be done with a 3-round liner, 5-round shader, 9-round shader, and a 13 curved mag. Alrighty then, less voiceover and more video. Okay, right. So I'll do a little bit down here, tell you what I'm thinking, and then you'll take over, do the exact same thing on your side. I'm leaving the text to you, though. I'm not going to. That's yours.
2 guys at one time. Oh my god, this is awesome. Thanks, guys.
We're going to start right at the bottom where you've got that shadow in this bit here. So starting with the 13 curved mag. So we're using this is a Flux Max. So I'm going to be putting it around 8, picking up the True Black. So I'm just setting the needles so that the tip is just, I don't know if you can see, just this side of the needles. Like that. Once it's running, I'm going to flick out any excess so I don't get any pooling, and then I'm going to gently rub a little bit of the redemption into the section that I'm doing. You ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Here we go. And using the very corner of this mag, I'm going to push in just those fur textures at the bottom there, all along, anywhere that I'm seeing any of those fur textures. We're coming up to the whiskers, so I'm making sure that I leave a space for those whiskers. And I'm going to because we're on this side and I want to preserve the stencil, so really we should have flipped it, so I would do the first bit. And now I'm using the full breadth of the mag to just fill in that section and all of that along there, because this bit starts to get grey and we're going to take it all the way over, and I'm just going to flick it down and away. You see how I'm just using the very tip of that. Flicking away from the black. This whole section can be a little bit darker, so now that I've got that black in there, I'm just going to go across that whole section again, just to get the centre a little bit darker. This bit's black right up to the lettering, so again using the very tip, the very corner of that. Why would I be pulling backwards there?
To like fade out like that?
Yeah, because if I push forward with the direct drive, you see the kind of stippling effect that we're getting in there?
Yeah.
We get that.
Yeah. But
if I'm pulling back, it's way softer on the movement, because basically what happens is the needles get caught by the skin, and they don't have that solid movement. I'm going to move straight into the nose because that bit's so quick. I'm going to grab the 5-round shader, check my depth again, because we don't have any faith that they're going to be set exactly the same all the way through. Again, running at 8, picking up the True Black. I'm going to go right into the nose. I see a little bit of black just below the nose, so taking this 5-round, I'm going to move it downward motions away. I don't like how much that's pulling. Now I'm going up and down, because that bit can be quite light, so I don't need so much accuracy, don't need so much depth, and I'm very carefully just going to dodge around the A in Panda there. So this whole section just needs to be black. See, I'm quickly running out of ink because it was watered down. And I'm just making forward and backward motions. The forward is to push ink in, the backwards is to just catch any that I might have missed. Putting it right up to the edge of that line. And it should stop around there. That bit should be dark grey on the outside, so I'm going to run that line all the way up there. And I'm going to flick it towards that dark grey that we've got at the top here. Again, skirting around the edge of the A. And if you listen carefully, you'll notice when I'm coming back there isn't much noise. When I'm moving up there's a lot more noise. That's because I'm pushing up.
Yeah.
When I'm coming back down I'm pretty much not in the skin.
Yeah.
You can hear the rhythm compared to my movements, right?
Yeah.
And here, same thing again. And that's his nose done. Nice tiny little nose. Okay. Let's get the rest of his snout in. So I'm looking here and there isn't much more black left to put in there. It's all now into the dark greys. So I'm looking at that and I'm checking my greys. I'm going to go with that second grey. What is it called? What's that second grey called?
Silver? Platinum?
Yeah, one of them. Because if I go straight into that's the platinum, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I go straight into that dark grey,
Yeah.
the difference between the black and that,
Not going to be enough.
it's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
So I'm just, now again, I'm going to go straight over the top of that black. Because I want it to be nice and soft.
Yeah.
And this little space here, I'm just pushing little lines side by side over those sections there. We have a couple of little dots here. And you'll notice I'm not pushing it all the way in, I'm just getting the very edge points in. So it's probably only one or two needles that are even hitting that section at all.
Okay.
And I don't want to start doing this bit across the bridge of his nose yet. So I'm going to give that a little wipe down, get rid of some of the ink that's on there, and I'm going to pick up some of that. That's a real high tone grey, so I'm going to jump right up to there because I can mix it in the skin quite softly. So this little bit here is a grey. I'm only really wanting to do the edge so that I can blend a dark grey over the top later. That whole section. Now we're going to hop back in down here. I just want a very light grey right up against that black, so I come in to push a white in. We've got it a little bit softer around the edges. I want to be able to get in there with the white. Here, I'm going to go again. You see how I'm going straight over that black in some of those sections? Because when I wipe it away, it's blending it in. They're blending together quite nicely. At a piece this scale, because it's so small, I can get away with bigger jumps between my gradients and just forcing them together in the skin, like that. Now this whole section, I would do the white here now, but we're not gonna do that because I'd like a little bit more depth control from you before we start trying to push those whites in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Happy with that? Cool. Right, do you want to do the other side?
Yeah.
How's it going? Great. Not that bad, actually. Kind of just feels like a Razor scooter to the back of my cap.
So taking the 5 round shader again, and this is true black. So I'm just looking at the reference, and like the whole cheek up here is black. And there's a little bit of black between the whiskers down here. So I'm going to take just this over here, making sure that I'm skirting along, leaving enough space for me to put in a platinum and probably the silver just in that little gap there, and then coming over here and filling these areas with a nice solid black. And you'll notice, again, listen to the rhythm, listen to when I make contact. You can hear that when I'm going this way there's no sound, when I'm going that way you can hear it rapping against the skin. So it's not a forward and backward motion, it's purely a from left to right motion.
Okay.
In these larger areas I'm moving a little bit slower just so I don't get any stippling. It's nice and solid. And you notice how I haven't wiped any of that yet. That's so that I can keep moving, because there are going to be a whole bunch of bits in here that I'm going to need a second pass. So I'm not going to just bother myself by doing all those bits now. Do it all in one go to make it nice and efficient. I'm starting to run out of ink in my inkwell there, so I'm going to wipe that whole bit away. You can see how I've only wiped that whole section once now, so stencil preservation is still up there. And check out this section. I've got a gap there. Check what that gap is. It's a dark grey, so I'm going to make sure I leave it in. This whole section is nice and solid, and now I can start to feather it out for the little bits that are between the hairs now. This whole section wants to be nice and dark. You'll notice again that I'm pushing away with each stroke, from the darkest point to the lightest point. Checking in here, I'm just going to mark out these little bits in here. Normally I wouldn't do the eyes yet, but because of the scale of this piece, I'm going to do them now, nice and quickly. There is a little bit of black just here, so I'm going to push that back in. Again, moving in the direction of the hairs, because that's going to create the texture for us. These are nice and solid. All that's a nice solid black, so I'm just going to go forward and backwards. And then, interestingly, this pupil fades into, that looks probably like the silver to me. So again, just mark that whole section, mark that, and then I'm going to flick out away from that eye. And you'll notice how I'm using only the fingertips.
Yeah.
I'm going to dodge now. I'm going to jump over the platinum, not going to use it. I'm going to use the silver straight away. Because again, that jump in a space this small is too small. Round here, where we've got this gradient out, I'm going to push quite thoroughly over the black that's already there, and then flick it out. And that whole section is that light grey, or that mid-tone grey as well. Listening to my movements, try not to see them as much as listen to them. You're a drummer, you've got rhythm. You said there, like you didn't really understand what I said.
No, I did. Sorry. I'm just trying not to talk over the video.
It's got rhythm, right?
He does.
Feel the rhythm.
Don't be racist.
I've seen him throw his ass in a circle.
No, you haven't.
No, I haven't. I'm sorry. Make that up.
I've never done that in my life.
Well, do you want to? You could go out dancing tonight.
Sounds like you're going dancing,
Sounds like
man.
I'm going dancing.
You can bring your lady if you want. But,
Thank you.
If you want.
yeah,
She'll probably be doing more dancing than I will.
I beg to differ, Ryan. Not if you're going with me, man.
I don't drink anymore, so I don't have that liquid courage.
Dude, all you need to do is just drink a couple Sprites and you'll be clean to go.
I don't have to cut so much audio. You see how aggressively I'm going over those blacks that are already there. don't so much care about that bit, that's too light. And then this section here. Always following the directions of the hairs, the way they're growing.
Okay.
The whole section could be nice.
Because when you kind of flick out, it will just naturally kind of taper itself.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Before you do this bit, I'm going to advise you do panda.
Okay.
Because we're starting to lose that stencil. So cleaning that off, and I'm now going to move into the titanium silver. That might be a little bit light. I am actually going to go into the blue silver first, because I want to get, you see how dark it is sort of in here? I want to get that bit in. It's too dark for the titanium silver, so blue silver it is. And we're going to do a little bit around the top there. We're going to finish the inside of the eye. And then this little bit here under the eye is darker than the rest there, so we're going to get those in. I'm just going to use it to soften up the edge here, because this is going to get quite a bit lighter here. And I'm also now filling up any gaps between the hairs that aren't the whiskers.
Okay.
I'm going to fill this whole section. Now the texture should already be there from the blacks underneath, so that's why I'm quite confidently just filling that section in, because you see how it's still got texture. Again, I would be thinking about the white, but we're not doing that yet. Now onto the titanium silver. This is where we run round this section here. You'll see that I just went straight over the top of the blue silver there. And I'm not so worried about that, because again, I want it to be softened slightly. That whole bit's quite light. Like this light as well. So I'm not too worried about the colours that are underneath. I'm just letting them get blended in.
Okay.
Do you see how it's adopted all the structure underneath?
Yeah.
All the texture from underneath is still coming through. That whisker's going straight up there, so we'll just pick up a little bit more. And just fill in any of these gaps that are now showing. The titanium silver is not going to be a strong enough pigment to cover up any of the black, but it will still break it down a little bit. And we're going to get some of that texture showing through. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting a lot of colour variation in the whiskers themselves, but we'll come back to that nearer the end when we're not so worried about the stencil preservation.
Okay.
So you're going to start by doing panda, and then you'll do the bit that I just did there.
Okay.
Well, if it's any consolation, Ryan, you're like way hotter, bro.
Thank you.
And I'm like,
I missed all of that.
Well, we were talking about
Yeah,
something.
nah, he was.
Yeah.
He was.
I was talking about my divorce.
See, the one thing I feel a lot of consolation in, Sama, though, like look at my ass, though, bro. And she'll never see it again. Ever.
And that's her loss.
Yeah, literally.
Right, I'm going to shut you up again.
Okay, shutting up.
We're going in with the true black, and I'm going to hit this whole section around the edge here. I'm going to treat this as always one bit. So I can see just at the top here, I'm going to start kind of in the middle, and I'm going to go forward and backwards.
Is that your mag?
That's with the 13 curve mag, yes. And now here, where it's nice and broad, I'm going to use the whole, I'm moving side to side, but I'm using all of the pins to get that bit in. We've got, I'm not going to do any of the ear in there. We've got a little strip here, so I'm just going to hit again with the edge of it. And then I'm going to come around here, and same again, because I want it to go in both directions. I'm kind of aiming for the middle and pulling forward and backwards. You'll see that I'm using my index finger, my thumb, and I'm using both my little finger and my ring finger on my right hand. And I'm running it all the way around the edge just to get those little...
A little back shadow.
Yeah. And it's particularly useful around these parts because it's going to give you that extra definition between the fur texture and the skin. It would be less vital if you had some kind of background in there. I clean that off, and I'm going to go into the platinum next, because there are a whole bunch of areas there that are still quite dark. Clean out the platinum, looking out any excess. So there's a little bit just here that's nice and dark, and then it's all around the top there. Again, I'm just using the very edge of the mag. And again, listening to the way I'm moving, you can hear that it's all on my upstrokes here. Otherwise, the downstrokes don't have any contact with the skin. Have a little bit in the ear. Look how often I'm checking my reference. Your head's got to be flicking back and forth. You've got to look like a retarded pigeon. Like that one.
That was a good one. I like that one.
That was for you. It wasn't for Ryan.
Thank you. I like that. So sweet.
He gets nervous when we do this sort of thing, and he doesn't think I'm funny.
I'm just scared.
Yeah. Can't hear me anymore. I say things to him. Kind of freaks him out a little bit.
Yeah. It's okay, Ryan. Don't worry. Sorry, buddy.
And as I'm creating an edge, I'm using all 4 points on the... all the 13 points, all 13 needles. Okay, it's only really down here that needs a bit of a blend. Okay. And then we're going to jump up again, clean that off, and we're going to move into the silver next. Just going to fill in this whole section here and run down the bridge of his nose. It's all about these side-to-side movements with the mags because that's again what's going to create the texture for you, make it as easy as possible for yourself. We could sit here with a liner and just push them in one by one, but fuck that.
Yeah.
Making sure I'm leaving space for that H. There's a tiny, tiny gap between the bridge of the nose and the start of the eye socket. See that tiny gap there? I'm going to go in with a high tone later and make it a little bit smaller, but it is almost, you know, there are a whole bunch of white bits in there.
Like that guy.
Just that bit there.
Okay.
Can you see how there's a tiny hair there,
Yeah.
and there, and there. But otherwise, it's this tiny little run. It doesn't have it on your side. So checking that sort of, that asymmetry. It's balanced, but it's not identical on both sides. So now I'm going around effectively where I can see that the stencil's got hairs in it, leaving those gaps open. I need to put some of those whites in. Just softening some of the edges. Again, we want to go from black to white in some of these areas. and just jumping from black to white doesn't work so well. You'll notice I'm starting on the black, like right in there. One of the bonuses of using a mag is that your accuracy is completely fucked.
But that's kind of nice because it gives it that natural.
Yeah.
Look.
If you were to put everything in,
Yeah.
as a species, we are way more inclined to do everything really systematically. Just we are designed for patterns. And if you lose control a little bit, we can't do patterns. So just letting the machine do some of the work for you. That bit needs to be a bit darker around here. I'm going to go into here. Okay, that's that whole bit done there. The ear is going to be pretty much the same process, but we'll come back to that because we want to focus on getting these long hairs on the inside there. Now I'm going to jump over my blue silver and go straight into the titanium silver here. If this guy was bigger, I would probably have lent more into like making sure I hit every single colour we've got out, and I would have mixed up a few more as well.
Ooh, sorry guys.
You are good.
I just flinched.
I got kicked in the dick once, so
Oh,
that
nice.
in comparison, nothing. Nothing.
That
I've been
would've
kicked in the dick a few times.
That would have been hilarious though. Like, how did you handle it? Did you just like...
I said, oh.
Nice. Like a champ.
So I'm going to fill in a little bit of this gap here, and I'm blending straight over the top around the eye. And again, it's all about those side-to-side movements. Got to flick out from around the eye. And this whole section is pretty much... You'll notice I'm dodging round the whiskers. This whole section is pretty much that high grey. A couple of areas that I want to go in later with the whites just to pick out, but otherwise this whole section. Because we've put our texture in, I can go straight over the top with this titanium silver,
And we'll keep that
and it
texture.
keeps the texture. This whole section as well, I want to do that whole bit. And now I'm going to overfill my inkwell. I'm not going to flick it out because I don't mind the pooling so much here. In fact, the pooling lets us go a little bit further. See how I just filled out the whole section. Still doing the side-to-side motions so that it's not completely, fully, totally saturated. There's still enough space for me to get in there with those whites a little bit later. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Quick and easy, that bit.
I've never been on a seesaw.
We're going to go in again with our 13 curve mag, and we're going to build it up shade by shade. Let's go straight in with the true black, and we're going to fill up this big gap in the middle of the ear first. So all these little gaps. And now because we're doing the negative, I'm pulling it into the hairs. This is the opposite of what we have been doing where we follow the direction the hair's going in,
Because it has that harsh edge.
because we're filling in this space.
Okay.
We're doing negative space now. We're doing where the hairs aren't.
Okay.
this whole section's black as well. Okay, the whole outside of the ear, again starting in the middle of where I want it to be and going in either direction. Okay, around here it starts to break up.
So there you just kind of dab it in?
Yeah. And then we've got all these little gaps. These are gaps between the hairs, so I'm going to do those with the edges of this mag. All the way around here, these are all gaps. See how many of those spaces I've already filled in. Now I'm going to move into the platinum. Again, just where the stencil is saying there are hairs. So that's all this round here as well. Across the top, a couple of little dots, pushing them away from the ear, because that's the direction those black hairs are moving in. It's important to be able to identify whether it's a black hair or if it's a space between the white hairs. Because if it's a black hair, then you want to go with the direction of the hair. If it's a space between the hairs, you want to go opposite the hairs, so that you're making, it's the same effect, because the white hairs need to go in the direction the hair is growing in.
Yep.
Now moving up into the silver upper tone. So that's these little bits up here, starting to fill out the gaps between the hairs that we put in around the edge. And now where the black is fading out, we've got to make sure again that we're leaving these gaps. It's that we're filling the spaces between the white hairs in that section. And then this whole bit is the back of the ear, so it's not hair, it's negative space. You are good.
Twitching.
You haven't twitched bad enough for it to be a problem yet.
Oh, good.
Try harder.
Okay.
But wait till it's Ryan, don't do it to me.
Oh, true. Noted.
Here, these grey hairs, but again, we're moving in the direction of the hairs because they're grey hairs, not spaces. And here again, filling up all of that. Okay, clean that off, and we're going to move into our blue silver now. So again, moving in the direction of the hairs growing in. So that edge is white, and then we want these bits to be hairs. So we're going to go in the direction the hairs are growing in again. Those bits are nice and white. So we're going to put in a couple of negative space. And then this bit is hairs, so again following the direction of the hairs. What is that noise?
I don't know, I heard that too.
I'm just going to do the whites throughout the whole piece now.
Okay.
Obviously not your side. The whites, we can afford to be way, way looser with them. Now we've got everything in there. So if I'm gonna jump down. Let's do the 5. So I'm gonna start with the whiskers because there are some bits on the whiskers that could be darker. So if you look at like where the whiskers are leaving the face. So I'm picking up silver, and like the whisker here, there, that guy there, and that guy there. That's all white, and we could do with a little bit of the silver up here, and the silver in here. Okay. Now I want to do a thicker line for those whiskers, so I want to jump up to the 9. But before I do that, I'm going to get the whites in the eyes because I want to stay on this needle so that I'm not changing back and forth needlessly.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get this line in here, do that white dot there, and there's a white that runs along there. And I just want that part of the eye to be a little bit lighter, so very quickly I'm going to do that. Just so we've got a little bit extra highlight there.
Okay.
I also want to get in this bit here, because the needle's going to be too big otherwise, and there. If I go in with a 9 round shader, that would be too big a needle grouping to get those sections in. So finish with my 5. Now I can move up into my 9. Check my depth because it's a new needle. Wow, wildly out. I want it to be a 9 because I want it to be thicker than the gap that I've got left.
Okay.
Because it's going to overlap slightly and it will make up for any inaccuracies that I've left behind. So all along here. There's a little whisker coming up here as well. I think whiskers are one of the worst things to tattoo.
Really?
Because you've got to leave that negative space.
Yeah.
You'll notice that I'm taking the white into the cheeks, just so those whiskers are there. This is so that when I pack white over the top, we've still got a slight change in texture, because the saturation is going to be different.
Like when you start going over those greys and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see that I put that white straight over that black there.
Yeah.
It mutes it, but it's still in there.
Yeah.
So now I've got all that in, I can jump up again from the 9 round shader to the 13 curved back. I want to reset my depth. The whites are a little bit temperamental because they've been there for hours. So I just picked up a little bit of water so I can break the surface there. I'm making sure that I'm picking up. I haven't diluted the white. I just needed to break the dry bits up. So with this, I'm just going to run through, double checking that I am right about each section that I go into. Same movements forwards and backwards, following the hairs, making sure that I'm breaking up any of the greys that are already in there. And now that whole section needs to be solid white, so I'm not so worried about my direction because I can't really see the fibres of the nose there so much for those hairs. We just need to make sure it's solid. Okay. Just want to strengthen some of those sections. So going sideways. The bridge of the nose is a couple of white bits, so I'm just loosely going to do that through it. That gap is a nice strong white, so forward and backward motions to create the texture. We're going to go over the top here, again making sure that I'm moving in the direction of the hair, so it has a kind of almost a V shape to it. Generally speaking, the V shape is your best friend when you're doing hair textures. And you see how these last little bits really finish it.
Yeah.
So now I'm just going through and picking out those final high white hairs. Just any little gaps that need a little bit of a lift. Because there aren't many areas left around the head that are supposed to be white. I mean, this bit could do with whitening. Now it's just checking my reference and seeing where there's like a little bit of gloss or a little bit of a high sheen. Being mindful to move in the direction of the hair grows. In this bit we don't see much texture, so just packing solid white really helps give it that structure, especially against that black. Finally, these hairs right outside the ear. A curved mag is an incredibly versatile needle. Because you have these opportunities to get, like, I can jump from like a 5-round shader to a full mag in just a twist of my wrist.
Yeah.
I want to get that bit again, because the transition from the nose to the bridge isn't quite subtle enough. It's a little bit too harsh. I'm just going to go back in here and push it up, checking where it sits against that P.
What? Seriously, start talking to
Oh, I drowned it.
me. Oh no. Who drowned?
The 13 curved mag.
Oh,
He's dead now.
I thought it was another person.
I think 3 kids that I went to school with in my year drowned.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, did they ever teach them how to swim, or?
We had fucking swimming lessons. thanks for watching all of that. I hope that there was something in there that was of any use to anybody at all. I know there's a lot of me rambling on and a lot of Danny talking shit, just to balance out the fact that Ryan didn't say a fucking word because he was too nervous. Anyway, I'd like to take this moment to thank my top tier on my Patreon. That's Gentle Rat Noodle Eater, Noobinator, Brian McInnes, Richard, Paul Harrington, and Liana Henry. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for supporting me again and again and again. I know that you're all there just to look at the pornographic images that I draw. I know. Don't even pretend. Anyway, I hope you think that this little trash panda's cool, because I think it's sick. And I think Ryan did a really good job on his half for full saturation realism. Anyway, head over to my Patreon and you get to see all this shit a week early, and you pay me then to keep making these videos. Check out my Instagram, buy some merch, you know. Peace.